Chapter 71. What is your face getting red for? James's glance traveled astutely across the two people. He stared at them for a short moment and smiled knowingly. Sarah immediately thought about James's marriage again. James, look at how content your younger brother is now. You should hurry up and make arrangements to find one too. Mother, don't bother yourself so much with my business. Anyway, you want a grandchild, so you should urge Ryan to try harder. That is more practical. Why did he draw her and Ryan into this again? Lisa immediately straightened her back in an unusual manner. Sarah hummed. That's not feasible. You're older than both of them, but you still haven't found a girlfriend. What is this? Lisa recognized that from the moment the president took up the job, many people would query about his marriage. However, James simply never worried about it. He had been in office for roughly 3 years. Everyone began to worry why Mr. President was still not married. Initially, no one brought this up in the open anymore. But coincidentally, another general election was being held again. Whether or not he could take up an additional term still, dependent on how the closing months of this year would turn out. Thus, James's marriage was once again brought up as a topic for discussion. Thereafter, Sarah said directly, "The room you'll be using tonight has already been tidied up. All right. I won't annoy you two any longer. Go back and rest. Don't chat too long with James, Ryan. Lisa will be terribly bored if she's left alone in the room." Lisa immediately looked at Ryan opposite her. They were staying here again. Knowing that the two brothers had not met for a long time and probably had a lot to talk about, Lisa gently departed this spot first. As he watched Lisa leave, James grinned and said to Ryan, "Sister-in-law seems not that bad." Ryan sighed. "Still, we were forced into this." James broke into a smile. He stared at Ryan. "From what I see right now, not everything is because it was forced. You imply that you're also compelled to treat her well?" Ryan stated, "Since I married her, she's my wife. I should treat her a little better. She's only 23 years old. This kind of wedded life is slightly too unfair for her, especially if I don't treat her well." James glanced aside in intense concentration and did not speak. However, James suddenly recalled of something and questioned, "That day, you called to ask me about a person, I forgot her name, who accidentally crashed into the caravan of the Glass Palace. The president's mansion was termed the Glazed Tile Palace, hence the convoy was also properly called the Glazed Tile Palace Convoy. They were the strictest security, guards on the president's side. Ryan remembers the events of that day." "That's right. She was Lisa's manager. Did she give you any alarm that day?" James's eyes lingered before growing much colder. "No." "That's good. What's her name?" "Emily, I think," Ryan said. James nodded his head, his expression remaining enigmatic. The two of them talked about crucial things for a little while before returning to their individual rooms. James observed Ryan leaving and spoke to his general secretary beside him. "Go and examine Emily. Ensure that she didn't leave any evidence of what transpired that day." The general secretary naturally comprehended him. He nodded before taking his leave. Lisa had paced up and down the room for a long time. It was only when she heard the door move that she rushed hastily down from the bed. When she saw Ryan come, Lisa exclaimed at Ryan with an angry face, "Ryan, what were you doing just now?" Ryan's face was completely neutral. "What did I do just now?" Looking at him faux innocence, Lisa yelled even more furiously, "You were touching me secretly under the table." Ryan sat down and raised his head to look at Lisa. "So what? You were taking liberties with me?" Ryan shrugged and said, "I did that to make our married life appear more realistic." Lisa was totally dumbstruck. "In that case, your performance just now was natural enough." Ryan grinned and remarked, "You were very natural too." No. My acting talents are awful. I wasn't as natural as you were." Ryan lifted his eyebrows. He grinned and responded, "So what you mean is that your earlier expressions were your true reactions? Then, when your face became red, it was a natural response?" At his remark, Lisa's cheeks began to redden even more. "Whose face was red? Do you want me to get a mirror for you to look into?" Ryan replied as he stood up and inched closer to her. Lisa hurriedly took a couple steps backward. No need! Lisa really had to hand it to him. In such type of situation, he could actually still play his part so brilliantly. Even now, he acted so colorfully and making her impossible to differentiate between what was true and what was not. She glanced at James's demanding gaze as he grinned slightly. It was so profound that it felt like he was ready to peer into her soul. She hurriedly walked into the bathroom as an excuse. She was going to shower, change her outfit, sleep early, and leave this place rapidly. In short, visiting the James residence, less often in the future, was still more appealing. Even now, she appeared to still be able to feel his lingering touch at the base of her thigh. A bolt of lightning darted across and prompted her to shake her head furiously, to forget the sense of enormous intensity. The next day, Lisa followed the firm to participate in the filming of National Winner, a popular variety program with unusually high viewing numbers. The corporation considered this as a highly big matter, and Emily borrowed a very expensive piece of clothes on Lisa's behalf. As she glanced at the clothes and high-heeled shoes in the bag, Emily smiled and remarked, "These are really not bad. However, the James family should have piles and mounds of garments that are more expensive than these." Lisa said, "Really? But I don't really know how to look at labels, so I don't know which ones are expensive. Can you come over next time and assist me look?" "Me? Forget it. Does the James residence simply allow anyone to go in?" Can't you just go in anytime you want?" Lisa was mildly shocked. Emily could not be bothered to explain to her. "Of course you can casually go in. That's not the case for the rest of us. All right, go get ready and do your makeup." Very shortly after, Lisa appeared at the television broadcast station. This program had an exclusive dressing room. Lisa was pretty eager all the way and peered about everywhere. After some while, Sarah arrived too. Upon realizing that Lisa had genuinely come to enroll in the program, she snorted and moved past Lisa. "Now, this program has also downgraded. Any cat or dog can come and join too." Sarah's pretty loud voice spread from behind her. Emily stared at Lisa and spoke to Lisa as if she was merely making small talk. "I heard that Senmira just had all her schedules canceled. I don't know if that's true or false." Someone noticed. "Her moonlighting at a little town. She even goes for events that pay $10,000 each. It appears like she actually needs money." Behind them, Sarah's demeanor changed rapidly when she heard this. When she thought of James, her heart was definitely afraid. She snorted and raised her head haughtily. In her high heels, she came out and exclaimed, "The air here is really bad. Let's go. We'll look for a private dressing room to do my makeup." Sarah exited noisily with her aide in tow. Lisa added, "Wherever she goes, she kicks up a fuss, seriously." Emily smiled. However, she saw that her phone was ringing. When she looked at the number, her heart jumped. Before leaving, she claimed to Lisa that she was going out to answer a call. Emily only answered the phone when she got outdoors. "Hello, how are you?" "Miss Emily, there are some things that I want to discuss with you a bit in person. If it's convenient for you, I can go look for you." Emily drew in a deep breath. "I already told you, that day was just an accident. I didn't have any ulterior plans. Can we meet in person to talk?" "All right. If you're scared that I captured your voice covertly, then let's just meet and talk." Inside. Sarah sneaked glimpses at Lisa inside. She was so upset that her face was totally green. She called her helper alongside her over to her and said, "Look for Lisa's clothes later. Do you notice that bag of hers? The clothing she'll be wearing tonight are definitely inside. Later, just go in." Chapter 72. An accident. Occurred during filming. A few bit later, in the changing room, the assistant's small shape slid in stealthily, and in the front, Lisa had just finished doing her makeup. She heard the uproar coming from outside, but could not see Sarah anywhere. She could only ask the makeup artist what had happened. The makeup artist said, "The situation must be like this because Nathan arrived." Just as she was done speaking, sure enough, she witnessed Nathan straight shove open the door to the dressing room and enter inside. It was the first time the makeup artist had ever noticed Nathan coming to the public dressing room. When she spotted Nathan, she grinned with happiness. And Nathan came soon to Lisa's side. He sat down, grinned, and observed, "Hey, I see you've lost weight. Is it because you couldn't see me every day once filming ceased, so you got more and more emaciated from missing me?" Lisa gazed at him speechlessly. Beside them, the makeup artists were listening to their chat. They did not anticipate Nathan to actually be such a jokester. He was significantly different from the impression they had of him prior to this. Furthermore, he was the kind of person who always brought his personal stylist wherever with him. He was not someone whom average makeup artists like them could come into contact with. All of them were quite happy to be able to view Nathan so closely this time. After some time, the director sent someone to tell them to hurry up because the recording was about to begin. Lisa hastened to place the finishing touches on her makeup. Then, she put on the attire that she had brought here herself. She was clothed in a short off-shoulder dress with flowery designs embroidered on it. It was matched with stilettos underneath and made it incredibly comfy to look at. It was pretty ideal for participating in a variety performance like this one. Nathan patted her shoulder. "Do your best." Lisa was still a little nervous. She sucked in a deep breath before walking inside. In no time, the presentation began, along with some music. Because Nathan was here, the production team did not dare to take things too far. There were relatively few game segments, and they usually included an interview with Nathan as the center point. From the side, Lisa watched. Olivia stepped out as well. She glanced at Lisa and snorted. With a disdainful attitude, she elevated her head. Then, all of the major production members came on stage. Lisa stood on the high stage as she stared at the fans and audience who filled the stadium. They were cheering enthusiastically below. The enormous lights were blazing on Lisa, making her face heat up. Just when Lisa was preparing to go forward, Olivia shoved her quickly to the side. Lisa blanked out. She still had very little competence on stage, and briefly did not really know how to successfully squeeze herself back in. Right at this moment, she felt Nathan hold her hard and move her forward to stand next him. The seasoned and experienced presenter naturally spotted this scenario instantly. He broke into a smile as he peered at the squad of persons lining up suitably. His eyes swept across Lisa and Nathan. Earlier, we noticed that when Nathan realized Lisa had no place to stand, he immediately pulled her over to the space beside him. Instantly, the host made Nathan and Lisa the topic of conversation. From behind, Olivia stared at Lisa standing close to Nathan. Her face was totally stiff. Lisa's visage reflected her slight humiliation at being talked about this way. Then Nathan continued with composure. "It's Lisa's first time on stage. She doesn't have a lot of experience. As her senior, I must give her a hand." The host promptly said, "Ayo, Nathan is so thoughtful. Lisa, how about it? How does it feel to be cared for by Nathan?" Lisa grinned and remarked, "It feels... I think that after the shot, I thought that I may be beaten to death by his supporters. Is the security for your program good? Will you be liable for sending me back later?" Upon hearing this, everyone proceeded to chuckle. Lisa seemed to slowly get a sense for this. Because the talk focused about Nathan, there were consequently more topics of conversation involving her. For the most part of the interview, she actually had opportunities all the time. On the other hand, Olivia only had a few. She was addressed solely during the introduction and again interviewed for a period regarding her recent engagement. Apart from that, she did not feature in many frames. Olivia's complexion darkened out of wrath. She scowled at Lisa, who was smiling and joking at the front. When Lisa was being questioned, she spoke in a wonderfully lively and relaxed manner. It made folks feel at ease. Seeing that the reactions to her interview were so wonderful, Olivia could not help but think to herself, this was only because she had Nathan's support. Olivia thought coldly, but you won't be able to appreciate it for too long. As she thought this, she glared savagely at Lisa's stilettos. Now, the MC requested all of the important members of the production team to pick up the sweets in the basket all together and distribute them to the crowd down below. The audience quickly broke into an uproar. They kept requesting for rewards, especially when they stared in Nathan's direction. Lisa had just taken a clutch of sweets. When she flung them down, she already knew that something was off with her shoes. Frowning, she wanted to look down at it, but again, she did not have time to do so. When she grabbed a fistful of sweets again, she merely heard her shoe heel shift all of a sudden. Lisa's feet slipped under her, and she nearly fell immediately. Someone behind her yelled out in alarm. Fortunately, Nathan swiftly supported Lisa up from beside her. The heel of Lisa's shoe had fractured. Behind, the host froze. "Oh no, your shoe is spoiled. Change into another pair." Lisa's face grew incredibly crimson. She realized that the camera was still filming her. In a moment of panic, she lifted her head, grinned, and observed. "Could it be that I've already gotten this heavy? My high heels can't even bear my weight." Everyone laughed out loud upon hearing this. Lisa made up her decision at that minute and quickly removed her shoes. She broke off the heel of the offending high-heeled shoe and quickly removed her other shoe as well. With a strong slap against the steps, the heel of that shoe similarly snapped off beautifully. She tossed the heels away swiftly and put on her shoes under everyone's startled gazes. "All done," the host gazed with his mouth agape. However, his response was still very rapid. "Lisa, you're too tough." Beside her, Nathan also chimed in. "Yes, no one in the production team sees her as a woman." Lisa raised her head, looked at the camera lens, and broke into a smile. The complete series of outstanding acts earlier was directly stored on the camera. Below, the director smiled and nodded as he looked on. He did not miss to deliver a short reminder to his aide. "Leave this part in. This scene looks fantastic and has an effect too. We can use it as the preview." The others below the stage could not resist but peek at Lisa as well. Contrary to anticipation, this last was fairly decisive. Olivia snorted at the back. She felt much more refreshed witnessing Lisa degrade herself in the front. It was merely that she did not anticipate Lisa to actually maintain calm in the moment and directly smooth over the shame. It was truly a pity that she did not experience a severe tumble. Lisa returned to the filming. She looked back and coincidentally encountered Olivia's proud eyes. She immediately started thinking. Until the finish of the software, things progressed beautifully. Nathan got off the stage and glanced at Lisa. "Is your leg all right?" Lisa raised her head and grinned. "I'm fine. Thank you for today." Nathan said, "What's the point of only saying it? Next time, treat me to a meal." Lisa agreed easily. "All right, definitely." Thereafter, she saw Olivia go past her, from the side with her head held high. By this point, Sarah had already returned. What exactly happened just now? Sarah had likewise been horrified upon seeing such a terrifying scenario from below. Lisa grabbed up her high sneakers. "I don't know what happened. These shoes are apparently extremely expensive." Sarah took up the shoes to examine them for a time. She continued, "This was obviously ruined by someone. There are slashed marks over here." Lisa strained her eyes, snorted, and said, "I know who did this. Olivia. Who else could it be but her?" Chapter 73. My Clothes Have All Been Ripped. Ryan walked out together with Lisa. As they were walking, Ryan said, "Luckily, your performance this time was not bad. You shouldn't have any problems." Lisa said, "That Olivia really seizes every chance to do evil." Ryan grinned as he glanced at her. "Aren't you sisters?" Lisa said, "That's enough. The Carter family doesn't even recognize that. They still have me as a daughter. You've been with me for such a long time, so you should know this too." Ryan grinned and looked at Lisa. "I really don't quite understand the ways of you rich people. Our family members are only civilians. It's good enough if I deposit money into my mother's account every month for everyday expenses and provide for my brother's education." Lisa said, "What civilians? I'm a civilian too." Ryan said, "All right, both of us are part of a generation that doesn't have any backup and must depend on our own hard work. Still, you should be in a considerably better situation now. Look, James treats you incredibly well and your career is on the rise." Lisa, "Oh, please. Still, it's simply my career that's reliable. As for men, why, I think James is very reliable too." Lisa added, "He just has a greater sense of responsibility towards me right now." "Responsibility?" Ryan asked in a puzzled tone. Lisa said, "Anyway, it's a very complicated matter. Forget it. I'll take it one step at a time. In any situation, I have to work hard at my career." Ryan said, "That's right. It's still your career that's the most reliable. You can only hold money in your hand. Ryan smiled and gazed at her terribly dumb attitude. The next day, a video of Lisa on the show was promptly posted on the internet by a netizen at the scene. In the video, she knocked the heel of her shoe off cleanly before properly putting on the ripped shoes again and completing the show as if nothing had occurred. Everyone felt that while doing this, Lisa was incredibly professional. Furthermore, her activities were incredibly intriguing. It made one instantly think about how tough this girl was. She was wonderful, but did not have an ounce of pretentiousness or affectation and was extremely calm. The fan count on Lisa's Weibo page continues to grow. There were already thousands of comments on her newest Weibo post. At home, Lisa surfed her Weibo for the most part of the day. She kept gazing at those comments and felt her ego swell to a substantial amount. News of that day was published very fast. The headline was that Lisa and Nathan had participated in the show together and had continuous sparks of chemistry during the filming. Nathan dashingly shielded Lisa, while Lisa feared about being attacked by his fans. Compared to all the female actresses that went on that day, Lisa was actually the one with the most exposure and the largest piece of news among them. The employer was pretty thrilled and stated that the director had personally congratulated Lisa and mentioned that she had a lot of promise in the future. James stared at Lisa reclining on the couch with a humorous smile. He walked over and said, "What happened?" Lisa said triumphantly. "I suddenly feel that I have the potential to become famous. Look, the amount of fans I have today has already exceeded a few million." "Really?" James brushed his gaze over it and smiled. He believed that she was quite readily satisfied. Nathan's fan count has probably hit tens of millions. Lisa raised her head. "Nathan is a super A-list celebrity, all right? I'm simply a rookie." Lisa returned to the room and prepared to sleep. But then she saw that the closet in the room seemed to have just been organized. She unlocked the closet, took out her pajamas, and went to the bathroom for a shower. It was only after she cleaned did she notice that this piece of attire was a bit strange. She only found when she looked in the mirror that the pajama was nearly half translucent. Lisa yelled glumly towards the outdoors, "James, who bought these pajamas?" "Why are they so weird?" James said. "How is it weird?" Lisa added. "Anyway, it's just pretty weird." James frowned. He opened the wardrobe and had a peek before calling back, "I think they're new clothes sent over by Mother from home." And Lisa answered gloomily, "Your mother's taste is too wicked. Why did she send over such attractive clothes? Perhaps she really wants to have grandchildren sooner." He grinned and remarked. Lisa gazed dejectedly at herself in the mirror. "Help me get another pair of pajamas." James looked at the various pajamas. Every item undoubtedly had its highlight. It made him a little inquisitive inadvertently. He did not know how exactly these pajamas, which were full of temptation, would seem on Lisa's body. After looking all of them over, he still did not discover a normal pair of pajamas. It appeared like his mother had made up her mind this time, to properly bring the two of them together. This was the reason why she had sent over such tons of clothing. James said, "There's no wearable clothing." "Then what should I do?" Lisa thought for a minute before saying, "Lend me your clothes first so I can wear them." "Mine?" James answered. "Just put up with it and wear it. What portion of your body have I not seen before?" "I don't want to. Rest assured. After I wear it, I won't return it to you. You have so many clothing that you haven't worn before. It's no trouble for you to lend me a piece anyway." After a little while, James hammered on the door from outside. Lisa cautiously opened a chunk of the door. Inside, the mist from her earlier shower poured outwards languidly and was joined by the perfume of her body wash. James glanced at her face, which was covered in 2 red spots after her shower. Her sight triggered his sensation of protectiveness, like a baby's face would, and he could not help but feel his body jerk. Lisa did not notice his unusual behavior. She snatched the clothing and shut the door in a panic. In no time, she changed her wardrobe and headed out. Lisa was smugly clothed in his huge apparel and said proudly, "I'm still the smart one." Upon hearing the sound, James turned his head. Immediately, he saw a white mass drift by. Lisa was wearing his pajamas. It was huge and bloated as well, making her body appear even more delicate and small. The sleeves were extremely long, so they were rolled up. The white expanse of her arms swayed back and forth like the roots of a lotus. The collar was overly broad, so the sparkling white of her collarbones underneath and her bare breast could barely be seen. Instantly, James turned his head away. His Adam's apple was quietly sliding back and forth. Naturally, a woman wearing a man's pajama made one feel that the link was somewhat ambiguous. It quite simply made one contemplate many strange concepts. James turned his head. "Lisa, change back into your own clothes." Lisa turned her head in surprise. "Why?" "I'll get someone to buy you clothes." He rose up as he said this. He did not stare at her enrapturing physique as he opened the door. Lisa twisted her lip. "But I won't ruin it by wearing it." All right, since you don't like it, I'll merely return the garments to you." Lisa remarked. "But if you get someone to change the clothes, wouldn't Mother find it weird and suspect our marital relationship? After all, if they were husband and wife, wearing clothes that were translucent should not be a great problem. Either." James gazed at Lisa and walked over. He muttered softly, "I have a way to dispel their suspicions." Lisa gazed at him in surprise. The corner of James's mouth raised at once. He directly snatched up that translucent item of garments belonging to Lisa. The moment he pressed power with his two hands, the thin fabric simply broke apart. Lisa's face turned extremely green. James answered the door and said, "What clothing is this?" "With one tear, it's ruined. Help change Madam's garments to sturdier ones." He placed the fully ripped pair of pajamas aside. A few maids could not help but stare speechlessly at one another as they glanced at it. Was the garment unable to sustain the intense excitement? Behind them, Lisa's face was completely red. This damn James. The maids soon retrieved a regular set of pajamas. They brushed their eyes over them with totally enticing gazes. It appeared as if they were saying, "You two were actually a little too emotional." Chapter 74, Don't Move, Keep Still in Your Sleep. The door closed before their eyes. Lisa glanced fixedly at James, whose demeanor was utterly peaceful. James lifted his eyebrows. "Why?" Lisa pounded her foot in his way. "Humph." She then grabbed the pajamas and hurried inside. As he watched her go in, James smiled with his lips squeezed together. However, he could not help but feel a little gloomy as he stared over those pajamas in their many colors and styles. She had a fairly great physique. She would surely appear really stunning in these attire. James grabbed up the clothing and glanced at them little reluctantly. However, he heard the door open noisily just an instant before Lisa came out from within. After changing her clothes, Lisa finally sighed a sigh of relief. The pajamas she was wearing was a long linen gown. It did not show off her figure at all, and she looked like a water bucket. Lisa thought that it was wonderful. James flung down the pajamas and lifted his head. He focused his gaze and stared at the clothing on Lisa's body. These servants. What clothing did they acquire for her? Lisa returned to the bed comfortably. After sitting down with her legs crossed, she casually took up a nail clipper and began trimming her toenails. James glanced at her with his face utterly shocked. Lisa's silky and creamy legs were crossed. In the middle of her legs, a sliver of her white underwear could obviously be seen. From such a small sliver, he could see her triangle-shaped panties, which was laced with a delicate flowery border. It had slashed into her flesh slightly and left small marks. Her legs were entwined, and James could not help but walk a few steps closer to her. He felt melancholy as he glanced at her filthy actions, yet he could not help but move his focus towards her. How he longed she could move again. That way, more of the sensitive flesh underneath would definitely be exposed. After she was done with her toenails, Lisa grabbed her feet and blew on them. When her feet were lifted up, her flesh inside was even more completely shown. James felt a wave of longing in his lower belly, and soon could not endure it any longer. "Lisa, can you sit even slightly like a woman?" Lisa lifted her head. "What did I do?" "What did you do? Do you want to know?" James lifted his eyebrows. Before Lisa could even respond, James had already gone up to her. He lowered his head and placed an arm on both sides of her. He engulfed her little and fragile body in his grip, and appeared inches away from forcing her down. Lisa's eyes burned as she glanced at the man who approached her all of a sudden. He stood exactly in front of her, and his stare was deep and buried. His gaze landed on her frontal chest. It seemed as if his big hand had touched it all over. Feeling apprehensive, Lisa tried to establish some distance between them. "What are you doing?" Lisa's gaze was blazing. "You started seducing me first." James's breath was like the perfume of orchids. I totally did not. Don't ever wear clothes like these when you're beside a man." With a threatening gaze, he swept his eyes all over her body. His voice was low and velvety like the lovely sound of a cello. Why? Because it's too easy to remove." His eyes followed the wide hem of the robe, as if he could stare through this piece of garment and into her body. Lisa froze. In the following minute, his long arms directly gripped her in his hug. Lisa was extremely astonished, and she tumbled onto the beautiful blanket on the bed. She instantly grabbed his hand and struggled. "James, you're behaving like a hoodlum." "Shh, don't move." His strong arms reached over and directly wrapped around her torso. His alluring phrase was like a magnificent tune echoing in her ears. It had a particular form of magic. "Otherwise, I'll really behave like a hoodlum." But just before Lisa was ready to move, she genuinely and palpably felt something of some sort behind her. It was so clearly pressing up against her body. She froze. When she widened her eyes and found out what that thing was, her heart jumped, and she did not dare to move carelessly. James just carried her in his arms like this. "All right, that's all. Sleep." "What?" James frowned. "I'm telling you to sleep. Do you not understand?" "But Or do you want to exercise for a bit before sleeping?" He was practically chewing on her ear as he murmured, "This." His voice communicated a workout of a different type. Lisa's body was exceedingly stiff and inflexible. She only felt like all of her blood seemed to be going backward. Her brain also followed suit and grew dizzy. No need. Sleep," she said hurriedly. She lay in his embrace for a long time. She just sighed a sigh of relief when she seemed to feel the thing sticking up behind her body, eventually relaxed slowly by a great degree. James felt the woman in his arms become more and more comfortable. Gradually, her shallow breaths began to soften down as their noises moved over to him. He thus softly relaxed his body. However, some component of his body was plainly not as intelligent as its counterparts. He sighed audibly. As he looked at the woman sleeping blissfully in his arms, he carefully changed the posture of his arms. He dropped his head and could still smell the slight aroma of her hair. He shut his eyes firmly. She was clearly a dumb woman. The next day. Lisa woke up. She realized that James had already gone. Lisa raced out. From the door of the dining room, she spotted James eating. James's complexion did not seem good. He looks as if he had not slept adequately. Lisa came closer to him guiltily. She recalled that she had fallen asleep in his grip the night before. However, she had already forgotten what transpired after that. She asked James, "Why? Was my sleeping posture last night not too good?" "To be honest, I tend to toss and turn in my sleep." "No." He simply moved his arm uneasily. His arm was a touch stiff from having been used by her as a pillow. This was the effect of not moving it at all for a night. The attendants immediately offered some breakfast to Lisa. Lisa raised her head and thanked them pleasantly. After eating breakfast, Lisa wanted to head to work. James said, "I'll take you along with me. Let's go." Lisa stood up hurriedly. "Really? I'll go change my clothes." As he gazed as Lisa escaped inside, James shook his head wordlessly. She was always behaving in a wild manner. The maid smiled and tidied up the dishes. She asked, "Sir, do we really have to change all of the clothes that ma'am sent over for madam?" James remembers those strangely shaped pajamas. "Throw them all away." "Very well. But it's a bit of a pity. They're all in madam's size." The maid said, "The rest of the pajamas have already been put up." James nodded. The maid heard the noises that Lisa was making inside. They felt that she was looking for clothes. Again, James said gloomily. She's seriously clumsy. The maid grinned and remarked, people are bound to have some shortcomings. Madam is such a beautiful person. Thus, it doesn't really matter that she's clumsy. She's a good person? James lifted his eyebrows. The maid said, yes. In short time, Lisa went out. James gazed silently at her figure, narrowing his eyes. Lisa walked out and stated in a horrified tone, what happened? James stood up, calmly gathered up his clothing and put them on. Nothing. Let's go. Chapter 75. I'll Go Shopping Together with You. The television series finally launched with a lot of hoopla. During this period, advertisements for Swords of Love could be seen along every street and alley. Sometimes Lisa may see them even when she went shopping. But right now, she was only beginning to acquire some exposure. After all, she was not known to everyone as Nathan was. Thus, the people outside still did not recognize her. As a result, even if she went out shopping, no one noticed her as well. She was still just like an average individual, but it was apparent that the television series was already drawing interest from the broadcast of its first episode. Its viewership rates stood firmly in top place, and its associated news entirely occupied the list of hot concerns, and the few primary leads inside began to be linked into diverse strategies to build buzz. Naturally, the response from Nathan's admirers was enormous. Every day, his supporters followed him about noisily as he attended his promotional events and made everyone envy. Sarah loves to keep a low profile. She did not really like to attend promotional activities and only went to certain major places. One could see that she had the manner of a very accomplished person, and a little actor like Lisa could easily move to wherever she was needed. She followed suit and attended the advertising activities to the point that her legs nearly shattered. However, she also experienced many rewards. Gradually, she started becoming able to react to the reporters' questioning. She began to learn from Nathan and was able to beat around the bush. Nathan took very good care of her the entire time, and as a result, her reputation began to improve as well. Furthermore, what was even more exciting was that Lisa's tough girl character in the television series was incredibly well received. In no time, there were already people claiming to be Lisa's admirers, and even a fan club was created. Lisa knew that this was only a temporary impact. Whether or not this occurrence may remain still relied on how her future evolved. However, even if this was the case, she was already extremely satisfied. On the day that they went to the Ryan residence to have a meal, the television series was coincidentally transmitted on the television. Ryan quickly saw Lisa on the television series. She was carrying a whip in her hand and appears untamed and attractive. She looked really dashing. Contrary to what Ryan had expected, Lisa had such a side to her. He could not help but take another look at the television series, even if he never watched any. Lisa was generally such a dazed person. He could not tell that she, in truth, had quite the flair for acting. After the two of them ate at the Ryan residence, they prepared to return to their own home. While they were waiting at the entry for the driver to pick them up, Lisa suddenly said, "Actually, this place is pretty close to the house. Why do we have to insist on waiting for the driver to come? Let's simply walk back. We ate so much for dinner, it'll be wonderful for our digestion." Behind them, just when Ethan wanted to rush up to them and say anything to stop them, he observed Ryan putting out a hand silently. He signaled for Ethan to swallow what he was about to say. Ryan stared at the sky and silently delivered a cue to the guards behind him with his eyes. Thereafter, he nodded at Lisa. "All right. We'll do as you said." When they came outside, the bodyguards stretched themselves out considerably. Ryan turned his head and took a glance. Only after establishing that everything was fine did he relax and walk outward along the street with Lisa. This was a well-known location for the wealthy in B City. The back of the area was packed with residences attached with gardens and various manors. Not many people resided there. However, Lisa sensed that there were even fewer people than normal today. She did not see that there were several bodyguards chasing after her. She went on the way, feeling at ease in her heart. The lighting beside the road shined down on a narrow, stone-tiled path. It appeared fairly tranquil and secluded. Looking into the distance, there was a great vibe to it. With one look, Lisa saw someone selling handcrafted soaps at the side. She was charmed by those little trinkets and immediately screamed before rapidly heading up. "Ryan, look! This little bunny was made so realistically. I want to buy it." When the shop owner noticed the people trailing behind them, he just felt that their aura was amazing. They just did not look like average humans. Upon observing the bodyguards covered in black, who were silently following behind them, a chill rushed down his back. Thus, he was very nervous and submissive to the few significant individuals who had unexpectedly come to his little shop. He commented tentatively to Lisa, "These are all handmade. They can simply be manufactured on the fly and undoubtedly have the most natural fragrances." Upon hearing this, Ryan remarked to Lisa, "If you like it, you can try making one yourself." Lisa said, "Really? Can I make one on my own?" The business owner instantly said, "Of course you can. Here, we supply molds for consumers to try on their own." Immediately, Lisa was pretty thrilled and smiled till she was grinning from ear to ear. As Ryan realized this, the corners of his lips likewise began to tug up slightly. Lisa was undoubtedly a lady who was very easy to gratify. Such a modest thing may even make her smile so blissfully. The two of them entered the shop. The bodyguards outside instinctively joined together and discreetly waited outside. As Lisa glanced at Ryan, she burst into a mischievous smile. "Excuse me. I want to make a handcrafted soap that is in his shape. Do you believe that's possible?" The shop owner said. It's not impossible either." Ryan presently stood by her. Upon hearing this, he looked down and smiled. "Don't you think that's a little inappropriate?" "How is it inappropriate?" Lisa said. Ryan snickered. A corner of his mouth raised slightly. "Handmade soaps are used when you're showering? So you mean that you expect to use a soap manufactured in my likeness to massage all over your body when you're showering?" Lisa's cheeks grew exceedingly crimson. "I don't mean that at all." Ryan lowered his head again slightly. As he stared at her little neck, he quietly took in a breath. He purposely pushed himself close to her hair and gently said, "It's all right. I look forward to it much. Go ahead." "No, I don't want to do it anymore. I want to make a tiny bunny too." Humph. The business owner eventually released a sigh of relief upon hearing this. From the side, he helped Lisa while she manufactured the soap. However, Lisa's talent was evidently not strong. The soap she generated appeared pretty odd. Ryan said, "Look at how clumsy you are." He could not handle that ridiculous attitude of hers, so he also directly began to help her make it. "How should I do this?" "Stupid. Move your hand over a bit. Does this look like a rabbit?" "Lisa, how can you be this stupid?" Lisa gazed at him speechlessly. "Anyone would get anxious with you rushing them like this." The two of them bickered noisily. At any rate, they ultimately managed to create a bar of homemade soap. The shop owner grinned and said, "I can engrave your name on the soap to commemorate this." Ryan agreed and said, "In that case, just engrave it." Lisa's pulse jerked swiftly. As she glanced at her own name and Ryan's name carved together at the side, the smile on her face intensified dramatically. After a lot of issues, the two of them had finally finished creating it. The shop owner wrapped the soap into a beautiful bag for them. Ryan nonchalantly grabbed up the bag and continued going out with Lisa. Lisa screamed with a tremendous sense of success. "I'm really talented. I made it appear so beautiful. It was clearly made entirely by me." "Nonsense. I set down the foundations. You only made it by standing on the shoulders of a giant." "All right, as long as you're happy." "Hey, there's ice cream. I want to eat that." Ryan glanced over at it. It was ice cream that was prepared on the spot. Only little children were enjoying the ice cream. "It's unhygienic. Don't eat it." No. Even if it's dirty, I won't get ill from eating it." "Hubby, purchase one for me." Just suddenly, a familiar voice boomed out from behind. "Ryan, why are you here?" To think that they would meet Emily here.